Morning. How are you all doing? Karibuni sana. Good to see lots of people streaming in, which is good. Hope you guys are well. Hope you've had a good time on the chats so far. But we're really glad that you could join us. As I always say, I know you're busy people, but thank you so much for always taking the time to be here with us each and every morning. Definitely something we do not take for granted. So for the sake of guys who are joining us for the first time, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So it's not a one-man show. So we do have Mitch. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box, which will definitely be getting back to you. But I will also be looking at the questions more specifically in the Q&A section. And of course, that goes out to all the guys who are joining us in the Zoom meeting. For guys who are joining us on our social media platforms, if you want to interact with us, then make sure that you do come into this meeting and we will definitely be able to interact with you. So we're going to jump straight into it. So you can see the watch list right there. Yesterday and today, there hasn't been much of a change. Remember yesterday when we looked at the fundamentals, there wasn't much that was going to be happening. And of course, that has carried on into today morning. So even during the Asian session, there isn't much that was happening. So we will be waiting to see what happens. Maybe tomorrow, could possibly end up having some changes on our watch list. But so far, everything is more or less the same. So we can start off by looking at a couple of screenshots. Actually, I think one screenshot that we did get. This one is from Christine Washara. In fact, there was one that Christine you sent, I think, on Thursday. But I think it was forgotten. So I think we'll just do justice by starting off with that one. So there was this trade that you sent in. This one was on gold. So it seems you got some two buying opportunities down within here. The market really moved up high, which is good. I think somewhere within here, and once the market started to move in your favor, consider the stop losses for your trades somewhere within this region right here, which is okay. And which is good. Can't say that you take profit or set somewhere within that region there. So hopefully you made some good profits on that one. But in terms of entry, also good to see that you got the buy down within a region where we do have buyers, which is good. Ideally, what we always do keep on advocating for. Buy with buyers, sell with sellers. And I can't see. This one, I think, is yesterday now. You got a sell on gold, which is good. We got it somewhere within this region after the market pulled back in within that region. And that was really good. Stop loss already below your point of entry, which is good. Of course, can't that you're targeting down within this region right here, which is okay. So this is some good trading. And of course, in terms of money management as well, really happy to see that. So Christine, if you're here, shout out to you. And of course, do keep up the good work. Always happy to see your screenshots here. And of course, remember, guys, you can't send in your screenshots. Sending in the screenshots is not for some people, not for other people. I know there are very many people who are here on the Zoom meeting, and we can see, and of course also on our social media platforms. Feel free to send them in to us. Remember, it's not a competition. Just embrace where you are. And of course, we'll give you the much needed advice. And of course, many people can learn a thing or two from your screenshots. And of course, that's the reason why we always do ask that you send them in. Also to see that, the information that we are giving you guys here is actually not going to waste. I know that many of you guys are actually using the information and you're trading. We just need to see it. And that's the reason why we're just asking that if you can, feel free to send in a screenshot. So our contact details should be there. You can send them in to us by WhatsApp, and we'll definitely give you the much needed shout out. So we're going to jump straight into it. It matters today. And you can see, for the guys who've joined us a bit late, there isn't much of a change on our watch list. So we're going to be doing the recaps of what happened yesterday as we continue moving along. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side, the currency pairs that is, then move on to the USD pairs, do the same, then the euros, then we'll finish off with the yen pairs, and then the indices and the commodities. So the first one, the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. I did point out that don't really end up looking for the sells until you get confirmation that the market has broken to the downside, because you really wouldn't have known what type of reaction would have happened. of this region right here. Maybe if the bars were going to come alive. But you can see that the market really held within here. This was all through the London session. During the US session, the market broke to the downside. But unfortunately, we couldn't get the much needed pullback coming back in. Unless you are reading this on a smaller time frame, maybe to jump in on those cells. But you can see the weakness that's there on the NZD. Even looking at what's happening today during the Asian session, you can see that the market is still going down lower. So for this one, we will still be trying to see whether we can get sales. So we've adjusted the areas to look like so. So make sure that you do take note of that. The market is back in within a support region, something similar to what happened yesterday. Let's see if we can get the market maybe coming back up. Even if it doesn't come back in within this region or this region, maybe we could find it back in within this area. You can see that during the Asian session, the move to the downside literally started somewhere within this area here. So you could find that maybe if we could possibly get, the market coming back in within that area, then we could possibly try and see whether we could get sales. So just make sure that you do wait for that. Also wait and see if you can't get the market breaking to the downside. If it does, then hopefully we'll get some sort of a nice pullback coming in, maybe not something similar to this, and we could possibly try and see whether we could get those conservative selling opportunities. So watch out for that. Of course, the region at the top is a long shot, but like I always point out, there's nothing that's impossible. When it comes to the Forex market, you could easily find the market back in within that region, if the big boys decide to do so, and no one can stop them. So just make sure that you're ready for it in case it does end up happening. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair that we had yesterday, just like all the others. So yesterday we're watching out for sales, and you can see the three areas right here that I had pointed out. And in the morning when we're looking at the charts at around this time yesterday, you can see that the market was down here. And I pointed out, don't look for sales, because of course there are definitely a lot of people, and a lot of traders who took their selling opportunities down here, the breakout traders. And I pointed out the fact that the market has been here before, and you can see that it's actually gone back to the upside. It can't do that again. Wait for that confirmation when the market pulls back in within this region. And you can see that the market came back in within the range, held within there. You can see that the market went all the way till the top of the range. So the selling opportunities were not really there yesterday, but you can see that the structure, the market structure, which is a range, is still holding, moving into today. So the levels on this one are the same. Considering the fact that we're back in a range, then the best area to look for your selling opportunities is the top of the range. So let's see what happens within here. So far, you can see that the big sellers are not really back in the game, because you can see the move coming down. This is not really them. So there's a possibility you could find that the market could bounce off this region to the upside. So what we possibly would be expecting is maybe the market coming back in within here, maybe for the sellers to end up regrouping. When they end up regrouping and we end up seeing, some aggressive sellers, not this type of mediocrity that's going on within here, and maybe a struggle of the buyers to go up, then I think at that point in time, if you do take your sales, possibly those sales would be much better than attempting sales now. It doesn't mean that the market can't come down. It can. But if you look at how it's coming down in this weak manner, you could find that even if the market comes down, it could actually end up struggling to come down. And I don't really think those are the type of trades you really want to be in on. I mean, you always want to take the least path of resistance. You see something like this when the market comes down quite fast, whereby you take your entry and within, a couple of, minutes or maybe an hour, 2 hours or so, you're already at your take profit area, not something that's just going to be fooling around with your emotions, and with your psychology. That's not really the type of trade you want to jump in on. So if we get something like this, possibly you could jump in on it. Or if we do break to the downside, for the guys who are a bit more experienced on the charts, if the market breaks to the downside and you can read what's happening within here, then you could possibly try and jump in on some selling opportunities within this area to come down to within here. So let's see if we could get that. But also remember the region at the top, there's a possibility price can come in there. I mean, if the prices within here are not good enough and the sellers need a much better price so that they can execute the selling opportunity, you could find the market coming back in somewhere within this region. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. But remember that that region at the top, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our selling opportunity. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair that we had yesterday. And you can see the three areas that I had pointed out, which are similar to what we're going to be watching out for today. And you can see in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So at around this time yesterday, I did point out that don't really look for your buys when the price is down here. But there was this area that I had pointed out that you could find the market coming back in within that tap that region. And you could get maybe a quick sell coming in if the market doesn't come back in all the way to within there. And you can see that the market tapped back in, it hit this level, came back in. If you look at the times at around 4:30 or thereabouts, it was back in within that region, and you can see that the market came down. So something almost similar to what we're expecting, and you can see that the market even from this region to the downside came back in. So it seems that this level is kind of holding, moving into today. So we're going to be watching out for these main three areas. Of course, the blue region or the blue SNR that we do have is some sort of a minor SNR that's giving issues, but you can see that the market maybe could somehow start to range within here. So you still could watch out and see if you could get selling opportunities within here. But the main level is a bit higher than that, and that's the reason why we have this area right here. So watch out for that. But also remember, in case the market breaks to the downside, and you do get confirmation that the market is holding to the downside of this region, then definitely you could find some good selling opportunities at that point in time. So watch out for that. So remember the region at the top, it's a bit of a long shot, but just keep your mind open in case the market does end up getting back there somehow. At least you'll be ready for it. So the next one, and the last Swiss franc pays the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, also trying to see whether we could get sells, can clearly see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, at a time like this yesterday, we go back to that. So somewhere within here. So you can see that at around 9, 10, 9:30, price was somewhere within here, held to the downside for quite a bit and then started to move to the downside. Possibly something that needed to be read on a smaller time frame to jump in on that. But you can see the strength on the Swiss franc pairs, which is something that we definitely did expect. So for this one, we're still going to be keeping up with the sells. And you can see based on the correlation that's happening on the Swiss franc pairs, they're all coming down, maybe apart from the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc, which means that the Great British Pound is also kind of fighting, with the Swiss franc to some extent. But at least considering the fact that it's within a range, we'll wait and see what happens. Maybe the big boys might decide to go for a bit, better prices before they actually continue, pushing that onto the downside. But generally, you can see the three other CHFs that we're looking at, all of them are coming down, which is good. It shows that the big boys definitely interested, with the Swiss franc pair. So we'll be trying to see whether we can join them on that. So for this one, watch out for these three areas right here. Don't really look for the sells now. Wait and see what type of reaction we get within here. You can see that the market has bounced off here before, as soon as yesterday. So unless the market breaks and holds beneath here, maybe we do get an attempt maybe of the buyers to break to the upside, because we're more or less within their region, but the sellers do actually end up shutting them down. If you end up getting something like that, then you could look for sales after you get that confirmation, of an attempt of the buyers within that region. But generally, just give the buyers within this region the benefit of doubt. You could find the market coming back in within here, or maybe even somewhere within this region. There's some sort of a seller's region within this area, and you could find that maybe proper sales could be happening somewhere within here, even if the market comes just shy of that region there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also remember the region at the top, definitely also an area where we can watch out for the selling opportunities. It's also a region that's quite visible, especially on the bigger time frame. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. So that's pretty much it for the CHF pairs. So we've mixed and matched them up with all the currency pairs on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the USD pairs, and we're going to do the same. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're watching out for selling opportunities, and you can clearly see the three areas that I had mapped out yesterday. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within here. So you can see that at around 9, 10, the price was within here. I pointed out that we needed to see an attempt of the buyers to push the market to the upside, and if they were unsuccessful, then we would have jumped in on the sells. And you can see that the buyers really attempted to really push the market to the upside within this area, but you can see that the sellers really did have a field day during the US session. So for this one, we're still going to be keeping up with the selling opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be watching out for today. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So some aggressive conservative within there and the aggressive area at the top. in case the market finds its way back within this region here. So let's wait and see if we can get the market breaking beneath this region to the downside. You can see that the buyers within this region right here are holding the sellers hostage. So if they can give up the ball and we can get the market breaking to the downside and we can get that confirmation, then possibly we could try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities on this one. So just make sure that you do watch out for those three areas right there. But in terms of looking for the sells, don't really look for the sells now. You could find that maybe during the London market open, price might come back in, maybe somewhere within here or somewhere within this region here. You can see that there's also some sort of a minor SNR within there. But generally, if the market comes back in within there, you could find that the proper selling opportunities could be higher up, within these regions here. So just be a bit patient. Market could be here right now, maybe 3-4:30. The market could be back in within this region. You just need to be a bit patient and wait and see what happens. But remember the red SNR at the top. If the market breaks that region to the upside and holds above that region, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next USD pair, which is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can't really see the three regions right there that I had mapped out. And if we go back to the times, at our time like this yesterday, price was somewhere within here. And I pointed out that don't look for the sells now. We're more or less within some sort of a buyer's region. You could find the market going back up. And you can see that during the US session, the market, or just before the US session, the market came back in within this region and gave a good selling opportunity, to calm down within this region. You can see that the market has gone back up. Right now, we're somewhere within here. You can see something similar to what we saw on the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So that tells you that there's something about the Great British Pound pairs, which we're not quite sure what the big boys are up to, but also to some extent maybe showing a bit of strength. Either they're going to look for better prices or something of the sort. But ideally, the good thing about this one is the market structure is quite straightforward. We're in a range. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within here. Right now, chasing the sells is not really worth it. There's a minor SNR within this region right here. And even if you do get the trades from this region coming down, the risk to reward might not really be worth it. Unless you're some scalper or something of the sort where you'll end up going down to the 1 minute time frame to really get those precise entries with some really tight stop losses. It's possibly better to just wait and see if we can get the market coming back in within here. Because you can see there's a minor SNR here. Buyers have pushed the market to the upside of this region. You could find that maybe they could do that, and you could find the market back in within this region, and you could find some proper selling opportunities during the US session. So watch out for that. Of course, remember the region at the top, just like we discussed on the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. In case the big boys need a much better price, just to incite more buyers to come in so that they can get and fill their selling orders, then you could find the market actually going back all the way to that region at the top. So watch out for that. So the next USD pair, this is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, watching out for buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area. So you can see at around 9:10, price was here. And I pointed out either you could find the market attempting to break to the downside and you could find the hold there to continue moving up, or if it breaks to the upside, you could find the pullback coming in and you could find the market going to the upside. And you can see that the market did that. This was during the London market open. The market continued to move up, but you can see that there was some sort of a rejection area somewhere at the top there during the US session. So for this one, we're still going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities, but don't look for the buys now. We can see if you can get some confirmation that the market has broken above that region to the upside. If you get the market pulling back in and holding above that region, then you could possibly try and see whether you could get some buying opportunities. So something almost similar to what happened within this region. If you can get that within here, then that would be good. But also remember, this region needs to be cleared generally. You can see that the buyers came up aggressively, but the sellers were able to shut them down. within this area, which means that there are still some strong sellers who are sitting somewhere within this area. So you need to watch out for that. But ideally, if we do clear that region on the pullback, then ideally you could possibly jump in on your buying opportunities. Also, watch out for this region right here. You could find that the buyers might attempt to break this region to the upside, and that might really end up inciting the sellers to really come in even harder, than they did before. And you could find the market back in within this region for some proper retest within this area. So you could find that maybe even some proper buys might happen off this area. So you just really need to be a bit patient, wait and see what the markets tell you. But in terms of just jumping in on the buys now, yeah, you could possibly jump in on them, but there's a high risk to it because you're really trying to go against this seller who's sitting somewhere within here. So let the big boys do the heavy lifting. Make sure that you do come in after them. And ideally, your trading is going to be much, much better if you do that. So moving on into the last USD pair. This is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had mapped out. And in the morning when we're looking at the chart, the market was somewhere within here. And you can see that all through the London session, the big boys were nowhere to be seen, either in terms of buys or sells, and the market was pretty much dead within this region. And you can see that during the US session, definitely seems like the US big boys are the ones who are interested, in pushing this market much lower. So for this one, although it could have been a bit tricky to grab that, let's maybe went down to a smaller time frame. These are the three areas that we will be watching out for. So let me just zoom in so that it's clearer for guys. So we're going to be watching out for selling opportunities within these three areas and also areas that we can end up managing our trades. So do watch out for that. Right now, don't look for the selling opportunities. Wait and see what happens within here. Hopefully, we can get the market attempting to break to the upside, and we can clearly see that it's not going to be able to do that. Then we could jump in on sales. If you take the risk of jumping in on the sales now, of course, you can and put your stops here. Of course, they don't need to be all the way up within that region there. But there's, that trade is highly aggressive. And you could easily find that you could easily end up getting stopped out within here. But if you do end up taking the risk, and let's say the market does end up coming back in within this region, then you could easily end up scratching your trade. Maybe wait for the market to reset itself. If it goes to the upside, comes back in, then you could look for yourself. But I would suggest that you possibly either end up waiting for the market to come back in here, or at least even if the market comes back in within this area, you can see that the sellers have pushed the market down off this area before. So you could find that the market might come shy of this area, but this region might be good enough. And in any case, you can see that maybe at this point in time, the market could be ranging. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. Remember the region at the top, it's a bit of a long shot, but you never really know. In case the market comes in within there, then at least you will be ready for it. So moving on into the next set of currency pairs. So we're done with the USD pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the Euro pairs. And we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within this region. So we wanted to see the reaction of the sellers within here. And you can see that they really struggled within there. But the market broke to the upside. They just took off. This was during the US session. So you can see that the market really went up. And you can see that also during the Asian session, the market is still moving up higher and higher, which is not also very uncommon, considering the fact that NZDs always tend to be more active, during the Asian session. NZDs, AUDs, and also the yen pairs. So you can definitely see that the Asian big boys are pushing the market to the upside quite well. So let's wait and see what happens. Don't really look for your buys right now. There's a region somewhere within here. I know here it looks like it's hanging in the middle of nowhere, but it's a level that's visible on the bigger time frame, on the 4-hour time frame. So we are approaching that region. And even if you end up getting your buys now, the risk to reward might not really be worth it because we're more or less now approaching the ceiling. So you're better off waiting for the market to come down so that at least you have some proper risk to reward to move to the upside. So either that, or if the market can break above this region to the upside and hold above, then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So be a bit patient. Let's see what happens on this one. But also remember this region at the bottom seems like a long shot. but it's always better to be prepared for something in case something happens. So just make sure that you watch out for that region as well. So the next one is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the chart, at a time like this yesterday, price was somewhere within here. And I pointed out that this wasn't a good area for you to look for your buying opportunities. And you clearly can't see why. The market came down. You can see that off this region during the London session, the market attempted to go to the upside, couldn't probe within that area. Definitely incited a lot of people to look for their selling opportunities, especially the breakout traders. And you can only imagine what happened to them. So the market came back in, and if you look at the times, at around 3, 4:30, the market took off to the upside. And this is the reason why we always point out being patient is very key. It's not a matter of, you come to the chart, you open your MT5, and immediately you start firing trades. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes trades will be ready, but of course, a lot of patience is always needed, to really get in on those really good setups. So for this one, we're still going to be watching out for buys. So the levels are the same. You can see something similar with the rest of the GBPs that we've seen. Most of them seem to be ranging, especially against the currency pairs that we've matched them up against, which means that there's definitely a fight that's going on, between the GBPs and the rest of them. Maybe some strength could be coming in. Maybe the markets could be setting themselves up. You could find that maybe because, the ranges that are happening, also something that's visible on the bigger time frame. You could find that maybe the big boys are loading up orders. And maybe when the news events for the Great British Pound do end up coming out, I think there's some PMIs tomorrow. You could find that maybe all hell might end up breaking loose. So we'll just have to wait and see. The big boys always keep, their cards so close to their chest. You can't quite tell what they're doing, but you can see some signs of, there's something about the GBPs. The fact that they're all ranging, there's definitely something. They must be loading some orders. So for this one, let's see if we can get the market coming back in within here. It's in a range. So, of course, it should be pretty straightforward. Proper buys are somewhere within here. Manage within that region. If we break above that region to the upside, you could keep up with the buys, but also watch out for this region right here in case the big boys need that price and they need a proper price so that they can pump in more orders in terms of the buys, then at least you will also be ready for that. So the next one, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we're watching out for buying opportunities yesterday. You can see the three regions that I had pointed out. This one worked out pretty well. You can see that in the morning when we're looking at the charts, the market was just approaching this area. And I pointed out, don't really look for your buys within here, because we wouldn't have known how this seller would have reacted. But the moment they were taken out, and you can see the market pulled back in there, and also quite well also during the US session before the market moved to the upside. So this one, proper setup in terms of proper conservative entry within that region there. And you can see that the market has continued to move up higher and higher. So that tells you that the euros are also quite strong and the big boys are very interested in them. And if you look at the rest of the euros, they're all going up. The Great British Pound is the only one that's holding the euro back. Same thing with the Swiss franc pairs that we looked at and also the USD pairs. But generally, you can see that the big boys are interested in the Swiss franc, the USD, and also the euro. So for this one, watch out for these three areas right here. Right now, the sellers are doing their thing. I mean, we're back within their region. Not really a surprise, that they're doing that. So let's wait and see if they can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here for us to look for the buys, and also watch out for that region at the bottom. Bit of a long shot, but like I always point out, anything is possible. So last but not least for the euro pairs is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, also watching out for buys. Also a lot of strength that you can see, just like we've seen with most of the euros. And you can see that in the morning, when we're looking at the price was somewhere within here. It talked about maybe we can get the market breaking above here and holding above. You could look for your buys. And you can see that's exactly what happened. And you can see that during the US session, the market really took off to the upside quite aggressively. So for this one, similar situation with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So we'll be waiting to see what happens at that region at the top, although the Canadian dollar is already on the pullback, but for this one has broken and it's held above. But sometimes you find that this type of breaches can be some sort of trap, whereby you hit the buys within here, and immediately you end up getting stuck within here, you could easily end up getting stopped out because the market could come back in, maybe back in within this region because this breach is a bit weak. Maybe the buyers are losing steam. Maybe they do need to incite a bit more sellers to come in. So you could also find that the market could break to the downside just to incite some sellers to come in before the buyers do actually end up resuming. So this one is a bit tricky. But ideally, let's wait and see what happens within this region right here. But you could find that maybe even buys could happen off this area right here, even if the market doesn't come back in all the way to within this region or within this region. So make sure that you do watch out for that. Although personally, I'm not really a fan of the conservatives that much, especially something like that that has already gone up. Sometimes I feel like I'm chasing the charts. Always like something that's giving a proper pullback, at least to know that the opposite party has been incited. Because when the market has already gone up like this, and everyone can definitely see that the market is going up, you can easily end up joining the 95 because not very many people were hitting buys, and the markets were down within these regions. But right now, considering the fact that anyone and everyone can see that the market is high up within this region right here, you find that this type of buys, personally, I feel like I'm chasing. And I don't know about you guys. And you could find that sometimes these ones result to losses because the pullbacks happen and you don't really see them, coming in because your mind is so fixed on where the chart is heading. So just make sure that you're also extra cautious on how you end up approaching that. Ideally, take the things that give you pullbacks. If you can't get a proper pullback that you can read and a trade that you're comfortable on, better off for you to actually not end up taking that trade. So that's pretty much it for the euro pairs. So we're now going to jump in on the last set of currency pairs, which are the yen pairs. And we're going to do the same, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we're going to start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had mapped out in the morning. When we're looking at the charts, price was just coming in within here. I pointed out that don't really look for the sells until you see and get confirmation that the buyers within here are done, or if the market pulls back in within these two regions right here. And you can see that the market broke to the upside, held for a bit. US big boys were not really interested in going that way. And you can see that the market came to the downside and held within here, but it seems that the market pushed itself off this region to the downside during the Asian session. So unfortunately, the sell didn't quite happen yesterday, but we had anticipated maybe we could have gotten something like this. So for this one for today, we are still going to be trying to see whether we can get some sells, but of course we have adjusted the regions. These are the three areas. We're back within a region of support. Let's see if we can get maybe something similar to this, but I would really hope and keep my fingers crossed, that the market possibly pulls back in somewhere within this region right here. If it does, I think some proper sales could happen within there. But if the market breaks to the downside, holds below this region, and you can see an attempt of the buyers to break to the upside, something similar to this within this area, then we could attempt our selling opportunities. So do watch out for that. But you also can see that this one has also been coming down. Definitely lots of people are jumping in on them. So you also need to be extra careful and extra cautious in terms of how you do end up approaching that one, because especially the ones that are very obvious, most of the times those ones end up being losses most of the time. And I don't know about the experience that you guys have had on the charts, but generally that's what I have personally seen, over the years. So you need to be extra wise, on how you end up approaching such kind of setups. So looking at the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday we were watching out for sells. You can clearly see the three regions that I had mapped out within that region there. And in the morning, when we're looking at the chart, the market had just broken this region to the downside. So you can see at around 9:30, 10, pointed out that you needed to wait and see if you could get the market holding within there. But there was also this region where you could find the market coming back in. And you can see that the buyers pushed the market to the upside. And you can see that off this region, the market ranged. So even if you got sales higher up within this region, more or less two opportunities during the London and the US session before the buyers went up, sellers looking for a much better price. There was somewhere where within this region, some sort of an SNR on the bigger time frame. And you can see that off that region during the Asian session, the market has come down. So for this one, don't chase the sells. Just make sure that you just wait and see if you can get the market going back to the upside. Within this region, you can see that the buyers have reacted before. they can do that again. So just be, a bit patient on that. See if we could get the market possibly coming back in within here. You could find that, especially due to the fact that the market has broken this region to the downside, you could find some sort of a retest coming back in within here. So there is a high probability and a possibility that you could find the market coming back in within here before you get some proper selling opportunities. So watch out for that. Of course, watch out for the region at the top. There's a possibility price could come in there, but if the market decides to break this region to the downside, then I guess we'll just have to look for those conservative opportunities. We have ideas of what we want the market to do, but remember that the Forex market, it has a mind of its own, so we'll just have to wait and see. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, also watching out for the sells. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And I did caution guys about chasing the sells just because the market was coming down. And you can see that the market bounced off this region a number of times. Unfortunately, it couldn't come back in all the way till within there, but it seems that there was some sort of a minus and now, within this region right here. And you can see that the sellers really held the buyers within this region and they really contained them. And you can see that today during the Asian session, the market has continued to push to the downside. So for this one, similar situation with the other one that we've looked at. So the market is more or less within some sort of a support region. So we'll have to be a bit patient, wait and see what the buyers within here have to say. And of course, if we can get the market coming back in within here, then you could find some proper sales happening there. Maybe at the top, yes, they decide to go for a deeper pullback, but also really watch out for what happens within here. If you can get a breach to the downside and the market holds, then at least you could possibly try and see whether you could jump in on your selling opportunities. So watch out for that. Also remember to watch out for the times. Like we always point out, 10, 3, and 4:30. But generally, you can't see the yen pairs, especially considering that their session was early in the morning. It seems like the big boys in Asia have already started pushing the market down lower. So it's possibly better to just wait and see if you can get those pullbacks coming in. You could find the pullback happening during the London session, and then maybe during the US session, you could find that the market could resume. So just be a bit patient on them. But like we always point out, you don't really need to force anything on any one particular currency. But that's the reason why we look at so many, so that even if one is not showing you what you need to see, then at least you can jump in and look at others. You might find opportunities on others, and you don't really need to force anything on anything. So last but not least, we're going to look at the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, and we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. And you can see that this one had moved. In fact, when we were looking at it in the morning, price was somewhere within this region, and that's why we added this level. Remember that we had these ones, but the market broke to the downside, and I pointed out, just watch out for this region. So if the market pulls back in within this region, you could look for some sales or time some sales within there, but just make sure that you manage here. You can see that the market came back in within that region. If you got sales there, you definitely needed to manage within this area. You can see that the market bounced to the upside, but like we've seen with the rest of the yens, seems like during the Asian session, the market has continued to move to the downside. So for this one, it's a similar situation. So we will be waiting to see what happens. Don't really end up jumping in on the selling opportunities right now. You could find that the market could easily bounce off this region to the upside. So you could find some proper sales within here, maybe somewhere within there. But if the market can break to the downside and you get confirmation that the market is holding to the downside, maybe something similar to this, then you could possibly try and jump in on your selling opportunities. But right now, be a bit more patient. Also, watch out for correlation. You can see that all the yen pairs, just looking at them, they're all looking similar, which means that even when the pullbacks do end up happening, you could find that the pullbacks could happen on all of them more or less at the same time. If that happens, then that's good. You could even maybe end up picking maybe 2 or 3 yens, or even if you want to trade all of them, just make sure that you really put your risk in check, because things can be very good. I mean, if you take all the yens and they actually end up working together, then that's good. You're definitely going to be making good money. But also remember, on the flip side, if you take all of them and things end up going south, then I also think things might not be very good for you. So make sure that you don't really also try and go hard or go home. You could easily end up being sent home. So just make sure that you also have that at the back of your mind, the whole money management and risk management measures. So that's pretty much it for the currency pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities, and there isn't much of a change on that. So we're going to start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we were looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get a sign of the sellers coming in within here. You can see that the buyers broke to the upside, continue to push up higher. And you can see that during the New York Stock Exchange session, that's when the market was back in within this region. You can see how fast the sellers did shut down the buyers, but you can also see that the buyers really reacted quite aggressively off this region. And this is a good example of what to talk about in terms of money management. You know, if you got sales here and you're just sitting there because you're excited of how the market is coming down aggressively and you're thinking because they've started coming down aggressively, the market should come down within here, then I hope that serves as a lesson so that at least next time you'll be a bit more proactive when it comes to money management, because you wouldn't really have expected that the market would have turned off this region quite aggressively. So getting entries is one part of trading. And we always tell guys that getting the entries is one part. That's the main part that everyone wants to get and get right. But also finishing something is also very important in terms of exits. You know, the good book tells us that the end of a matter is more important than the beginning. So you can start off well, but if you finish poorly, then ideally you're still not going to be making money. So just make sure that you also really have your money management in check. So for this one, the levels are the same. In as much as the market has moved, it's not really moved far and beyond the areas that we had yesterday. Of course, there was an aggressive push to the upside. Market came down aggressively. But generally, it seems like the sellers within this region are holding. So you could find some sales happening off this region, and you could find the market coming down back in within this region right here, maybe somewhere within this area. So just make sure that you watch out for that. The fact that the market has attempted to break to the upside and come back in and it's holding within here, it tells us that the sellers within this region generally are alive and they are well. The only problem that we have is the fact that the market is coming down in a very choppy manner. You could find that maybe there's a possibility the buyers could attempt to push the market up again. And if we can generally see an aggressive seller coming in, you know, more aggressive than this, because this is pure mediocrity, you know, that's happening right now. If you can get a proper seller coming in, then maybe you could find the market doing like that. So there's a possibility you could find that these buyers could possibly attempt to break their previous record, which is somewhere within here. If the sellers do end up now showing up at that point in time, and they show up more aggressively, you could look for the sells. But if that ends up not happening, and let's say the market breaks to the upside, and instead of having something like this, we end up having something like this, whereby the market breaks to the upside, comes back in, attempts to break to the downside, can't, and holds to the upside, then at that point in time, it means that the buyers are going to have a field day. There's a possibility these buyers will continue pushing the market to the upside. And if that's the case, then at that point in time, you could start to look for your buying opportunities. Remember, on the indices and the commodities, we're fully technical. It's purely based on where is the market. Is it above or below the red SNR? If we break above here and hold above this region, then at that point in time, then I guess we could start to look for our buying opportunities. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But make sure that you also don't end up getting fooled. You know, don't get trigger happy just because the market breaks above there. The first candle that breaks and immediately you want to jump in on the buys. Make sure that you're a bit patient to make sure that you actually see that the market is actually holding above that region. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. And you can see the three regions right there that I have pointed out, which are similar to what we're going to be watching out for today. And yesterday, at a time like this, price was somewhere within here. There wasn't much that was happening. We needed price to come back in as close as possible within that, look for some proper sells. And you can see that the market tapped in within that region a number of times, came back somewhere down within here. Second attempt, unfortunately, couldn't get all the way down to within there. But generally, you can see that the sellers still holding within this region. So the levels are the same on this one. So make sure that you do take note of these three areas right here. Let's see if we can get maybe the sellers getting interested, or if they do end up being incited. You know, maybe if the market attempts to break to the upside, comes back in, then we could get some proper sellers coming in. You can see what's happening right now. These are not proper sellers. These are weak sellers, which means If you do jump in on the sells, you're joining the weaker party, which is not really what you want to be doing. So make sure that you're a bit patient, and also considering the fact that the market has come back in within this region, you could target down here, which is okay, because you can see that the market has come down aggressively off this region back in within here. And you could find that maybe if the sellers do end up regrouping, there's an attempt that they might make to break their previous record, because this move, this is something that's visible on the bigger time frame as well. So you could find that the big boys on the bigger time frame could possibly be attempting to challenge their previous low, which is somewhere within here. But considering the fact that we're trading the 15-minute, and you can see that there's already been a problem area here a number of times yesterday, I think it would only be wise, on your way down, that even if you could target here, just make sure that you watch out for this region. Because you can imagine if you end up getting a really good sell up there, and then you don't end up managing your trade because you're targeting down here and the market turns on you like it did yesterday, then that might not really be too good. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember, for as long as we're holding below the red SNR, then the bias is to look for selling opportunities. So the next one, which is silver. For silver, similar situation, watching out for sells. Can clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out in the morning. When we're looking at the charts yesterday, price was somewhere within here. And I had pointed out that don't really look for your selling opportunities when the market is so close within this region. You can see that there was an attempt, the sellers to break this region to the downside, but you can see that the market came back in, held above here, and you can see that at around 4:30, the market started to move back to the upside. Unfortunately, it couldn't get back in all the way to within here. So for this one, the sells yesterday were not really quite there. But I also can point out that region right there. It may not be a level that's visible to very many people, but it looks like on this time frame, just looking at the story of what's happening, there's definitely a level somewhere within this area right here that could possibly give issues. And you can see that when the market, or if the market does end up coming back in within here, even if it comes shy of this area here, I think you could possibly try and see whether you could get some selling opportunities, within this blue line right here. So you could also possibly have that. But ideally, the major levels that we're focusing on are definitely these three right here. And right now, considering the fact that the market is attempting to break to the downside, don't really look for your selling opportunities right now. You can see that even yesterday, the market attempted to break to the downside, but there's a region right here where you can see that the buyers were able to push the market back to the upside. So if you end up jumping in on the sells now, it's aggressive because you do need that confirmation that the market is holding to the downside of this area. Hopefully, we can get to see what these buyers can do. Maybe even if they attempt to push the market to the upside, and the sellers are able to shut them down, and the market actually holds within here, where you can visually see that there's an attempt of the buyers to break above, this region to the upside, and it's unsuccessful, and the market continues to go to the downside. Then ideally at that point in time, you could possibly try and look for your selling opportunities. These ones are maybe going to give you, less stress compared to the others. So just make sure that you really wait for that confirmation to make your trading that much better. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now, for gold yesterday, similar situation, trying to see whether we could get some sells. And you can see in the morning when you're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And you can see that around 9, 10, price was within here. We wanted to see if we could get the market coming back within this region. Unfortunately, we couldn't. You can see that the buyers really struggled to push the market to the upside, but you can see that the sellers did come in quite aggressively just before the US session, and the market was holding within this region right here. So even if I were to zoom in, you can see that the market broke to the downside. Definitely some attempts, of the buyers to break to the upside, although this one would be much more visible on the 3-minute and the 1-minute time frame, just to get that detail. And you can see that the market came down off this region. So from 4:30, you can see that the market came down, of course, giving a good sell, although a bit technical in terms of the read. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be keeping up with the sells. Remember, for as long as we are holding below the red SNR, then the buyers should be to look for selling opportunities. The market has broke within this area. So we're just going to be waiting to see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within here. Then I think there could be some good selling opportunities within this region to come down, back till within this area right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also remember the region at the top. Slim possibility price could get back there, but like I always point out, it's better for you to actually be ready for it in case that does end up happening. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So for the guys who may have come in a bit late, feel free to take note of what we're going to be watching out for today. So looking at the Q&A, I see Alan Ronald there. Good to see you, Alan. Always happy to see you here. Saying hi, John. Thanks a lot. Karibu sana, Alan. I see Elijah. Good to see you as well. You're saying, morning. Kindly comment on these three scenarios on when to exit charts. One, should one work with target profits for a day? Definitely. You should be having goals. Let me put it that way, just to answer the first question. You should always have goals, because if you don't have a goal, that's the reason why you find people overtrading. If, let's say, for example, you've said that today you're just going to make $50 or $100, and you know that once you hit your profits for the day, then you're done. But you see, if you don't have a target, that's the reason why you find people overtrading, because they're trying to make $1 million in one day. And unfortunately, it ends up being very frustrating. So it's better for you to have targets, and also realistic targets, because you can't have an account that has $100 and you're saying that every day you want to make 1,000. I mean, you're just not being realistic. So make sure that your targets are also realistic based on what you're trading. So let's say if you have $100 and you say that every day you want to be making $10 or $20, you see that's something that's achievable. Your targets need to be smart. So just make sure that you have some smart targets, but it's good to have a target so that it stops you from overtrading. So I hope that answers your first question. So you're asking, should one stay on charts, on the chart so long as the trades are running in profits? We advise people not to. Reason being, sometimes you will find that the markets will be fooling around, because the markets don't just go from your entry all the way till you take profit. You will find that there will be that ebb and flow that happens. And what we normally say is you will self-sabotage, especially if you sit on the charts. And I know that most of you who are watching, you can attest to this. There are very many times whereby you wish you were not on the charts, because had you not been on the charts, you would have not interfered with the trades that were running. Had you left them, the trades would have literally gone all the way till you take profit. But the fact that you are sitting in front of your charts, and let's say, for example, you are taking a buy, just because you saw one red candle, you immediately jumped out of that trade because your psychology kicked in. So we always advise you not to possibly end up sitting, staying on the charts per se. That's the reason why you need to make sure that you've done a proper analysis before you take the trade, so that once you take the trade, you know that you've done everything you need to do, and you can confidently walk away knowing that you've done your job. The reason why you find sometimes people sitting on the charts for long periods is because they are not very confident with their analysis. So you have to sit there. But also remember, by you sitting there, you're not really adding anything to your trading. Remember, you have no power to move the market. If you've gone in the wrong direction, there's nothing that you can really do to push the market the other way. So that's the reason why sometimes people normally end up praying a lot, just to make sure that God intervenes and really helps you, to save you from a bad situation. But what we normally say is, if you can put in some proper analysis, put in the work, before you actually take a trade, that will be much better for you, so that when you actually end up taking the trade, you won't have to actually end up sitting there to babysit. Because sometimes people say that they want to go from formal employment to actually end up becoming full-time traders, but what they end up becoming are just slaves to their computers. Every trade you take, you just have to sit there. You can't leave. The freedom aspect that you wanted when you came into trading is just not going to be there. So I would suggest, if you can do some proper analysis, let your trades, let the big boys and the markets do the rest. So have a set and go type of mentality. That will be much better for you, also much better for your psychology as well. So the third question you're asking is, should one stay on the chart so long as the trades are running in losses and hoping the tide will change? You see, that also goes hand in hand with the second question. You should never do that. Because if you commit to a trade, commit to it. If you've taken a trade, you have your stop loss, you have your take profit. You've done everything you need to do. Let the market do its thing. If you keep interfering with the trades, then there's bound to be a problem. Like I always say, even for guys who drive, if you commit to overtake. If you're not sure about it, then don't do it. And that's the reason why accidents sometimes and most of the times normally happen. It's because people are not sure about what they want to do on the roads. If you commit to something, commit to it and not interfere with it. If you commit to overtake, overtake. So same thing on the charts. Have a set and go type of mentality. Whatever happens, happens. Remember, there are always three outcomes to any trade. Number one, you can either take a trade and it goes to your take profit. That's what we all want. Number two, you can take a trade and the market goes to your stop loss, which should also be okay considering the fact that you have taken your risk into consideration when you're taking the trade. The reason why you find people actually being stuck on their computers is also because the money that you're risking is money that you cannot afford to lose. And that's the reason why you think that by being present in front of your chart, you're helping the situation, but you're not. If, let's say, for example, you've put school fees or the rent and you want to double, and you definitely know that you're over risking. This is money that you cannot afford to lose, but you've come and you've put it on the charts. Then you see now you've put yourself in a situation where you definitely can't leave the charts. So also make sure that you're trading in some sort of mental comfort. It starts with the money that you're trading is money at least you can afford to lose, and also your risk is in check. If you have those two in place, you should be able to take a trade, and whatever happens, and you shouldn't really be too afraid about that. So I hope that answers your questions, Elijah. But those are really some really good questions, especially tackling psychology when it comes to trading. So I see Patricia there. Patricia Mwangi, you're asking me to repeat gold. Yeah, so I set this up here. So I hope you've taken note of this. But generally, we're going to be watching out for sales. So just watch out for those three areas right there. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in within there. If not, and the market continues to come down, unless you're looking at it at a smaller time frame to read what's going on within here, possibly you could jump in on sales, or you could wait for the market to possibly break this region to the downside, and we could resume the selling opportunities. So I hope that sorts you out, Patricia. So I guess that's pretty much it. Not really seeing much, which is okay. So I want to thank guys, of course, once again for joining us. I hope you've learned a lot. Hope we've given you much value. We always try to do that each and every morning, each and every session, but we're always happy when you guys do join us here, because, it would be no fun presenting these things to ourselves. So thank you so much for always making the time to be here with us. So I see Daniel Simiyu there saying thank you, Afriforex. Karibu sana. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So in case you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. You do have our contact details. Remember, the AMP August and September class still open. If you want to sign up, make sure that you do jump in on that. Like I pointed out, there will be a masterclass, exclusive masterclass webinar coming in maybe later on this week, or maybe early next week. So for the guys in the masterclass, also make sure that you do watch out for that. And like I pointed out, also for the guys at the one-on-one level, at the top level, we're also planning something for you sometime soon. So with that, happy trading, guys, and bye for now. See you tomorrow.